And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
You are listening to the UK Preppers Radio Network on KPRN-DB UK. I'm your host Tom Linden and welcome. Sorry about the elongated break, a combination of my bad health I think, and combined with a cyber attack, believe it or not. Dear listener, please allow me to first of all thank you. That's each and every one of you for listening, for spreading the word, and for your exceptional loyalty too. And I really do have to say that all of your messages and comments are very heartwarming. Thank you very much. The combination of these facts combined with the meteoric rise of the Disaster Survival Network in the USA meant only one thing: a coming together and the formation of a world-beating, world-driving force for preppers and survivalists alike. The UK Preppers and Survivalists radio show is now going to be featured on the Disaster Survival Network. I personally have been given the great honour of running the Disaster Survival Network here in the UK. The Disaster Survival Network is honoured to have on board number 5 at the moment, but always in the top 10, voted for survivalists in the world, the one and only America's survival son, Mr. Daniel Shrigley. Great having Daniel on board. What a recommendation to have a man like this on board. The UK will soon be up and running within as soon as my scheduling is given. However, we join the Disaster Survival Network as it opens new avenues of exposure to and advice and information on prepping and survival. A new TV station with dedicated TV channels on our own servers, live news is even planned. This is what we have been working towards. This will promote our movement, inform critics and counter mainstream media lies and misinformation. The Disaster Survival Network is, however, much more than that. The Disaster Survival magazine is America's most popular monthly prepping and survival magazine, with over 100 graphic heavy pages in each issue. Well worth signing up to, by the way. So what a great honour to be working with such a great survivor leader like Dan Shrigley, Vincent, who started the whole ball rolling. I cannot name, but I will mention our American financial backers. Thank you, guys. So look, I've whet your appetite, I do hope. Simply watch this space, as they say. Now on with the show. Now, a question often asked of me, certainly, and I'm sure you've come across this question at some point, is how long are you prepared for? Well, in this 24/7 world, we are brought world news hourly, daily. We are shown tragedy on our TV screens, computer screens, homes destroyed, survivors stranded without food or clean water. Cold and wet, completely lost as to what to do. They simply huddle under makeshift shelter, waiting for someone to do something. And still, most people seeing these images still maintain a sense of international denial that, it can't happen to them. I'm not going to list survival kit items or Bugout bag items. You can find those on my site or through Google. There is some good news though, as more and more people are taking heed and are diligently preparing for something they hope will never happen. The ability to survive on your own without any governmental support has gained popularity over the last few years. People are indeed waking up. Of course, in the end, it will be up to the individual to manage an existence in the event of a major catastrophe. So the question is, how long are you prepared for? Is it 1 week? As we've seen with major storms across the country, Mother Nature is capable of pushing us back 100 years in moments. Power can be severely disrupted, water supplies can be tainted. When added to the physical hazards of a storm, finding these resources can, of course, be a challenge. There are really basic steps that everyone should be taking, regardless of whether or not they live in an area prone to storms or other natural disasters. Of course, water is critical and should be seen as priority 1. Avoid using tap water after a major event unless it has been cleared by authorities, and you should keep water stored in your home. It is recommended that you store a gallon of water per person per day. Store non-perishable food. Now these can be emergency type meals or the readily available MREs, the meals ready to eat. These items will need to be stored without refrigeration, of course, and since power is unreliable, it's probably some of the best meals you can have. You should also put together an emergency kit. Again, details on my site. So what about preparing for a month? Well, if you're planning for a month, then you need to expand your planning to accommodate this longer period. With your newly extended timeline, you should consider a water filtration system. You will be challenged for space, I think, if you tried to carry a month's supplies worth of water per person. Add to that the fact that you may have to be mobile, making it impossible. Now the good news is that there are many water bottle filters and Purity tabs etc. on the market, all very well priced, and all you have to do really is follow what it says, because it does what it says on the tin. Now you could or should plan on storing vegetables either in specialised containers or preserving them. Be sure that these items are stored in water safe areas. Anything exposed to flood type waters can be contaminated. And you can also store simple canned meals like the usual raviolis, spaghettis and soups. An additional kit I will call basic gear needs to be added, and then this kit should have basic tools like pliers, screwdrivers and a hammer. It should also include baling wire, duct tape, you knew that was coming, twine, rope, basic tools really to help you manage general repairs after the dust settles. While some spending cash was handy for the week-long challenge, I think it's critical if you're going to get along for a month. Now never carry your entire reserve with you, of course. Make certain that you've got a secure storage area for it. So obviously I think the next step up would be 6 months. That's a heck of a lot of time, you know. Things are pretty grim at this point, but you know they're not hopeless. If you're planning on preparing for 6 months on your own, then you need to expand and adjust once again. At the 6-month point, you might consider growing some of your own food. Vegetable seeds are hearty and can be stored in cool, dry places for long amounts of time. You should also consider deploying your hunting and fishing skills. This should only supplement your existing food stores, however, and trying to live off the land is extremely difficult, so be aware, and it requires a dedicated effort to succeed. And this is especially true of those who don't have a background in these skills. So what about a year then? At this point, I think you're basically what the Americans would call homesteading. You'll have to provide everything you need in order to survive. How you prepare at this point is crucial. Even though the event happens and you're unaware of it, it may be almost impossible to expand your supplies. The images of empty shelves prior to bad weather or even Christmas shopping will be nothing compared to a year-long catastrophe. Water will be an ongoing challenge at this point. People serious about long-term survival and preparedness collect and further purify rainwater as a means of improving their water reserves. Another method of long-term water management is boiling large amounts and then storing it. This is effective against bacteria and other organisms, but you should be cautious about chemical contamination as well. A garden and livestock of some type are going to be extremely important during a year-long crisis. I think the top of most people's lists would be chickens, really because they're small and they produce eggs, and when they stop producing eggs, you can eat the chicken. Goats are a good idea. They basically look after themselves and they eat basically everything, and of course they taste very nice. You're also going to need to become a master of bartering goods and services, because I think cash will begin to lose its power for a variety of reasons. So plan ahead and double or triple the items we discussed before. If possible, make your garden large enough that you can plant extra produce, and this will make it easier for you to barter what you've grown for what you need. Clothes are going to be extremely important, and the ability to repair them now becomes a necessity. Sewing supplies as well as extra material for patches is a must. For those who are handy, you can also begin to make your own clothing as a long-term solution. I remember my mother sitting down with what looked like a wooden mushroom as she darned socks. Today in our throwaway society, we do that, don't we? We throw the ones away with the holes in them. Now, if an emergency goes on for a year, it's going to be extremely tough, and as I've said many times, most people will not be prepared. You should plan on having to defend yourself as well as your supplies, and this may seem horrific to you, but you know, this is a reality. For your safety and the safety of those around you, it is important for you to never discuss what you have in your supplies. This is as important during good times, of course, as it is in bad. The cliche comment seen on media by the unprepared regarding preppers is, "I know where I am going if you know what hits the fan." But the idea is that they will storm the property of the prepper and take what they need. The best way to avoid this is not to advertise your actions. Quietly prepare and be diligent about protecting your supplies. What about a worst case scenario? What does that mean? Well, I have stopped at a year, but there are places such as post-earthquake Haiti that show us a year may not be enough to sort things out and for a government to respond. The planning going beyond a year really is more about personal preparation than it is goods. You must learn fundamental skills ranging from gardening to emergency medicine. That's field medicine, by the way, because there'll be no doctors or hospitals. And the fact is, we must face doing it ourselves. A disaster can happen to any of us, even in the most advanced country in the world. You know, we are susceptible to cataclysmic events capable of leaving us alone and without any support. The question is, how you survive will be up to you. And are you prepared? Simple as that.
Being self-reliant is about being prepared and to do what you need to have your own source of renewable energy. Portable Solar LLC offers the most powerful solar system on the market that is transportable from place to place, and the best part, it's very affordable. Contact them at portablesolarllc.com or call for details at 972-575-8875. Be ready for bad weather and everything in between. PortableSolarLLC.com. Powerful, reliable, expandable portable energy for today's world.
You are listening to the premier UK Preppers and Survivalist radio show. And here is your host, Tom Linden.
You are listening to the UK Preppers Radio Network on KPRNDB UK. I'm your host, Tom Linden, and welcome back. Blizzard Survival are offering a 20% discount. They have a fantastic offer. It's on a product called Reflex Cell. Now, I would say that it's the ultimate in lightweight thermal protection. Now, this material has become the new standard wherever thermal protection in a lightweight, compact package is essential. Their reflex products are totally unique, as weight for weight they're far warmer than goose down, but they are 100% waterproof, tough, ultra portable, and of course reusable. In real terms, life-saving technology has never ever been so affordable, and all you need to do to get your 20% discount is enter the code PREPPER at the checkout. It's that simple. Thank you. That's www.blizzardsurvival.com. One click and it's 1800. For many years, decades in fact, we have been preparing for an EMP attack, a CME, which is a coronal mass ejection if you don't know, bad weather, in fact all and everything that could produce a power cut on a major scale. But we have not prepared for an aimed attack on our energy supplies by cyber soldiers, terrorists, hackers. In fact, anyone who has a grudge could literally collapse our power system in seconds. With natural disasters, of course, there is a degree of warning given to those who may be affected, either by the TV or the internet, and unless that happens, sort of we all seem to assume that, we're all okay. But there is a real threat of this happening every single day, and the trouble is there will be no warning at all. Things would simply stop. Welcome to the 1800s. Major cyber attacks that could cripple Britain's energy supplies, nuclear power stations and defence industry have doubled in a year. This was a warning, by the way, from GCHQ. Spy Chief said Britain's listening post was identifying 200 significant cyber attacks a month, around 7 a day, compared to just 100 a month last year. Criminals, terror cells, hostile foreign states are all using cyber technology to target critical infrastructure in a bid to bring chaos to the UK or steal the country's industrial and military secrets. Karen Martin, who is the Director General for Cybersecurity at GCHQ, drummed home how the UK faced sophisticated and continual threats online every single day. He said these are attacks that are of significance to national security. That is either because of who the aggressor or the victim is, or because of the nature of that attack. Mr. Martin reinforced remarks he made in the summer when he said the cyber threat to Britain was chronic, advanced and persistent. GCHQ, the Cheltenham-based intelligence centre, has warned that an attack on nuclear power stations, electricity and computer networks could lead to blackouts where fridges, phones, computers, water networks and transport systems are simply brought to a halt. Security officials have also warned that computer hackers could launch computer-generated assaults which could force an airline packed with people to simply fall out of the sky, crash. A new breed of cyber criminal could crack sophisticated onboard computer systems and pose a threat to a plane, avoiding the need for any potential murderer to actually board the plane, it is feared. Now, ministers will this month publish a national security strategy, that's the NSS, which is expected to highlight the huge internet-based potential risks facing Britain because of the online dependence of Whitehall businesses and, of course, you and me, individuals. Individuals create software viruses or rogue computer programs, if you wish, and emails. They're likely to be considered a Tier 1 threat. This is the most serious. The figures revealed by Mr. Martin relate to attacks or attempted attacks that pass a threshold of seriousness for GCHQ. That could include targeting critical national infrastructure or significant attacks from key groups such as hostile states or serious organised crime groups. Cyber attacks using previously unknown methods to penetrate security systems would also be counted. Officials also warned that advanced hacking technology is increasingly available online, meaning increasing numbers of offenders can actually launch cyber attacks. Simple technology for denial of service attacks, where a computer system, for example, is bombarded with messages until it collapses, can actually be bought for just a few pounds. Major attacks are becoming increasingly common. Last month, hackers stole the personal details of more than 156,000 customers of the communication company TalkTalk. Research in the summer revealed that the cyber activism has hit 9 out of 10 major British companies, costing the economy tens of billions of pounds. Mr. Martin issued his warning as GCHQ and the government launched a £6.5 million cyber invest programme, which will work with academic experts and the private sector to support research into cyber attacks and, of course, how best to protect against them. Cybersecurity Minister, I didn't know we had one by the way, but he's called Matthew Hancock, told the Information Insurance Conference in London that defences around the government email network is repelling 33,000 attempted attacks every single month.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Sling bow products are portable and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug-out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of sling bow, a new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
You are listening to the premier UK Preppers and Survivalist radio show. And here is your host, Tom Linden.
You are listening to the UK Preppers Radio Network on KPRN-DB UK. I'm your host, Tom Linden, and it's absolutely great to have you with me. I really do enjoy talking to you guys. So what's in my BOB? At one point that would have been my Bugout boat, but having got rid of her, it's now my Bugout bag. And it contains the necessities, in my opinion, for an emergency evacuation which may require travelling for several days to actually reach a place of safety, or a BOL, a pre-planned Bugout location. It will typically be stocked with survival gear and supplies for 3 to 7 days. Mine is always there with at least 5 days in it, in the car, in the vehicle, including water, food, first aid supplies, clothing. Then that clothing is dependent upon the weather conditions, of course. Cooking, sleeping and camping gear, and it may actually include a firearm for self-defense, but I'm not admitting that. But of course it will certainly have something for survival hunting and of course fishing. Now it's a good idea to have a Bugout bag, I think, in your vehicle, because that usually allows the fastest response to an emergency situation, and in many ways it could of course double up as a get home bag too, depending on how you packed it. Now you just get in your car and you go. Now, in addition, the contents of a Bugout bag can help you through many lesser emergencies that might be something as mundane, of course, as wet feet, a button lost from a shirt or a top, or more seriously, getting stuck in the snow overnight. Of course, you know, there's always a chance that a worldwide collapse might strike at the height of rush hour, you know, or that a local emergency may make your evacuation routes impassable by road. If you may have to abandon your Bugout vehicle. That means really Shanks's pony, doesn't it? On your own 2 feet. And most Bugout bags are surplus military or expedition backpacks, and they do allow for just such a contingency. The items in a Bugout bag can be pretty expensive, and it's the cost of the pack that they're stored in as well that can make it even more cost prohibitive. A Bugout bag carried inside a vehicle and on show, of course, will be a tempting target for thieves. So please bear this in mind. It's absolutely stupid to put one of these together and then have somebody else benefit from its contents. Likewise, in a catastrophic emergency, such as perhaps a coordinated EMP, electromagnetic pulse attack, or an SCME, which is a solar coronal mass ejection that destroys the national grid, for example, and disables every modern vehicle, just being seen with a well-stocked Bugout bag I actually make you a tempting target as well. Then too, a full Bugout bag can be pretty heavy. Frankly, nobody really likes hiking around with 50-pound packs on their back. First, I think you need to assemble your emergency supplies, and these vary according to your personal needs, situation and location. And of course, one other thing to bear in mind: how much you actually know. There is a very good saying within survival that the more you know in your head, the less you need to carry on your back. Now, my Bugout bag is packed for me for 5 days, but allows for the possibility of a longer time in the field by including some extra hunting and fishing gear. Here's a list of my Bugout bag goodies. Water supply, 1 gallon. A person typically needs a gallon of water per day. But let's be honest, weight is a limiting factor, so I carry a military time water bottle, and this means I can purify my water when I come across it without really too much of a concern about where the water is actually coming from. Food supply, 5 days, that's 3,000 calories a day, which I think is adequate. Now we've also got rice, pasta, lentils, oatmeal, instant potatoes, beef jerky, energy bars, trail mix. I make my own, freeze-dried entries like ramen noodles, instant soup, pasta, coffee, tea, sugar, salt, bovril, hot chocolate, spices, pre-packed bannock mix in a Ziploc bag, of course, and it's best to pack, I think, only familiar foods that you do enjoy and which will be easily prepared. Now, most of the meals I've just mentioned to you, most of the options I've just mentioned to you, are extremely light. All they need is, in many cases, water, and you have a full meal. Fire kit: 3 Bic fire lighters, a blast match, a magnesium fire starter, waxed jute tinder. I also carry the Pocket Bellows weatherproof fire starting system, which in fact you can literally take wood from a bucket of water and it will ignite and make a fire, which is great for the UK, isn't it? Because it always seems to be raining when we go out into the woods. I also have some Dragon Fire Gel cotton wool balls with Vaseline. So basically, I think somewhere down the line, I will be able to light a fire. When it comes to cooking kit, and don't forget, this is in the car, and it will be in the backpack. I carry the BioLite Camp Stove Bundle. Now, it's a fold-away pocket cooker from campingsurvival.com. Now, the bundle itself is incredible because not only can I heat food with it, but I can actually charge my phone up at the same time, and there's a series of lights and a torch which comes with the system. 2 sporks, a plastic plate and a thermal mug. When it comes to hygiene supplies, plastic scouring pad, plain liquid bleach, wet wipes, towel, toothpaste, washcloth, mirror, comb, mini e-tool, folding shovel, something like that, toilet paper of course. And I like to bring the waterless wash kit from norinse.co.uk. You really have to try that. You literally apply it and then rub it off with a towel, whether there's a shampoo for your hair or the shower gel type for your body. And you literally, as I say, put it on and bring it off with a towel. I simply take the towel, then wash it in a water source. It's clean, hang it out to dry, and it's ready for the next day. Bleach, well, you can use it to purify water, and you should really learn how. Sleeping gear with the Snug Pack Extreme sleeping bag and the Lakeland Pirate hammock, and a thermal ground sheet in between me and the hammock. When it comes to a shelter, 6x8 camo tarp with attached paracord tent poles, 4 tent pegs and a ridgeline. First aid kit is again common sense: assorted plasters, 2 rolls of gauze bandage, assorted gauze pads, triangular bandage, 2 large bandanas, and of course 3 sanitary towels and 3 tampons. And no, I don't need them, but they do in their own way make great fire starters and even plug missile wounds when it comes to the tampon. And a bit of a basic, okay, but nevertheless effective field dressing or bandage, the sanitary towels. I have also got a suture kit, prescription and over-the-counter meds, aspirin, antibiotic ointment, burn gel, that type of thing, insect repellent, sunscreen, electrical tape, tourniquet, bandage, scissors and tweezers. Now when it comes to insect repellent, this isn't going to last forever. So what I have done with a product I'm going to review for next week's show, the little drink pods, they are very, very useful after you've had the contents, because you can then put in wax and a little wick, and you end up with obviously something similar or akin to a tea light, which is free. But I put in citronella essence, which in itself keeps the mozzies and other bugs away. So that's something that you may wish to consider. Try out, even if you're just having a barbecue at night, sat in the garden, keep the midges and the bugs away, use citronella. Now lighting, well, it comes down to 2 mini LED flashlights with extra batteries, the Luminade and the Lucy solar lights, check them out guys, the Orb from Mule and the Mule light from uvpacklight.com. You've got to check those 4 items out. They're absolutely out of this world. When it comes to camp tools, I have 2 tools I take with me. One is my survival knife, the Titan, and the other one is a simple multi-tool. When it comes to clothing, you see, the clothing's slightly different for everybody, isn't it? But I do have 5 pairs of socks. Now you might think, are you going to change your socks every day? Well, yeah, why not? But of course socks can be used for other things, can't they? They can be used for straining water. They can be used to put crayfish or any small animals that you've caught in the sock. It's a way of carrying it back, and or wild food, vegetation. I've put 5 pairs of wool socks, the Danish Endurance compression socks from Amazon, 1 pair of pants, long sleeve shirt, t-shirt, spare belt. Now the belt comes actually with a tack pack, and I will be telling you all about tack pack as it's due to arrive in the UK on sale in late spring, early summer. It's at the moment only available through an online source. Check out tack pack, TACPAC. Incredibly good emergency high protein energy food. Even comes in an ammo box. Now I have included a poncho It's only, I bought it for £1 from the pound shop, okay? Nothing fantastic, but if that's all you had to keep you dry, it would certainly do its job. And or it could be rigged to make a very, very temporary, but nevertheless useful shelter. I've got a hat, my usual cowboy type hat, a wool beanie, a Gore-Tex winter jacket. I have got now the Run Like gloves, which are incredible because they have got LED lights built into them and they're USB chargeable. Got a set of knee pads, sunglasses and spare eyeglasses incidentally, because that's something that I need, and a pair of gaiters, incredibly useful. When it comes to fishing gear, I have the Pen fishing rod and reel from gofastandlight.com. I've done that, the reel's loaded with 4-pound fishing line, and it is a Pen type rod. It's incredible, right? And the biggest fish yet to date caught on one of these small items is 18 pounds. I've got the imitation bait course box from enterprisetackle.co.uk, and I have pre-tied lengths of hooks and some floats. When it comes to hunting gear, of course, with snare wire, the survival slingshot, the pocket shot from pocketshot.com, and loads of ammo. I do have a sewing kit, needles, thread, buttons, safety pins, and when it comes to navigation and communication gear, compass, waterproof notepaper, pencil, my E-Expedition Timex watch, which will tell me temperature, air temperature, water temperature. It will tell me even if I'm near the coast, high tide, low tide, etc. And it has got an electronic compass. And I also carry a wind-up emergency radio. My Bugout vehicle has a CB radio, and I have a mobile charger plus a power pack too. Things that I would classify as miscellaneous gear, but nevertheless extremely worth considering, are 2 Hypergear dry bags from Amazon. No point in having your kit wet if you are wet yourself, where you're going to change in too. 100 foot of 550 paracord, which if you think about it becomes 700 feet if you strip it down to its individual 7 strands. Ziploc bags, zip ties or zip cables, are brilliant things. Mini binoculars, which I carry on my belt. Camo face paint. Coffee filters, which can be used to strain algae and debris out of water before you purify it. Survival blanket, hand warmers and a whistle. And that is what I carry. Now what you carry will be up to you, be totally different to what I carry, and that's the way it's supposed to be. If you decide to copy what I've got in my Bugout bag, make sure that what I've got is actually of some relevance to you.
You are listening to the premier UK Preppers and Survivalists radio show. And here is your host, Tom Linden.
You are listening to the UK Preppers Radio Network on KPRN-DB UK. I'm your host, Tom Linden. I wonder if you've all sat down with your big Bugout bags, get-home bags, your backpack, and taken everything out, checked expiry dates, replenished anything that needs replenishing, anything you've used during the winter months, perhaps charged up things that need charging up. Just keep an eye on expiry dates, etc., etc. I'd like now to look at fluoride part 2. The first time I mentioned this, I got hundreds of comments from around the world actually about people who said they didn't know what I'd been talking about was true. They didn't realize, they were not aware, and basically had changed their way of life in many ways. They had thrown away the toothpaste with the fluoride in it and bought some fluoride free toothpaste, and even to the point of buying water filters to prevent having to drink the flipping stuff, which is a poison in any case, from the local municipal tap supply. Fluoride used by Nazis to sterilize inmates and make them docile. Fluoride, a key dumbing down ingredient of Prozac. Oh, and sarin nerve gas. Poisons of choice for tyrant rats. If this is new to you, please go and look at the toothpaste box or tube and simply please read the medical warning. I promise you there is a medical warning on toothpaste in your supermarket. One of the most commented on pieces I did last year was the one on fluoride in toothpaste. The result was an amazing amount of people. As I said, they didn't know what was going on, and most told me, as a result of my show, they had thrown out the usual toothpaste. Isn't that amazing? People were concerned enough to throw it away, and of course they'd bought fluoride free instead. First of all, it needs to be stated that the substance referred to as fluoride is to some degree a misnomer. There's no such substance listed in the periodic chart of the elements, nor in the prestigious CRC handbook, nor in the sacred Bible of the pharmaceutical industry, the illustrious Merck Index. Instead, we find a gas called fluorine. And from the use of this gas in various industries, such as aluminium manufacturing and the nuclear industry, certain toxic byproducts are created which have captured fluorine molecules. One such toxic process or poisonous byproduct is called sodium fluoride, which according to the Merck Index is primarily used as rat and cockroach poison, and is also the main active ingredient in most toothpastes and as an additive to drinking water. Think about that. A waste product, a poisonous waste product, is now admitted to being put into toothpaste and water supplies. I believe this was all started by the Crest company many years ago. But listen to this though. This stuff is so dangerous that it will burn through concrete. But sadly, there's so much more to this sordid tale. Did you know that sodium fluoride is one of the basic ingredients in Prozac? Now, they're called fluoxetine hydrochloride. And sarin gas, nerve gas of course, isopropyl methyl phosphorol fluoride. Yes folks, the same sarin nerve gas that terrorists released on a crowded Japanese subway train. No, I'm not winding you up here, and I'm not telling lies, and I'm not making this up. Let me repeat the truth. You need to understand the fact that sodium fluoride is nothing more or less than a hazardous waste byproduct of the nuclear and aluminium industries. In addition to being the primary ingredient in rat and cockroach poison, it is also a main ingredient in anesthetic, hypnotic and psychiatric drugs, as well as military quality nerve gas. Why, oh why, then is it allowed to be added to toothpaste and drinking water of us, the people? Historically, the substance was quite expensive for the world's premier chemical companies to dispose of, you see. But in the 50s and the 60s, Alcoa and the entire aluminium industry, with a vast overabundance of toxic waste, somehow sold the FDA, that's the Federal Drug Administration in America, and the government on the insane but highly profitable idea of buying this poison at a 20,000% markup and then injecting it into our water supply, as well into the nation's toothpaste and of course mouthwash. Incidentally, how does drinking fluoride help your teeth? Anyway, yes, that's right, dear listener, a 20,000% markup. That's not bad, is it, for a waste product? Consider also that when sodium fluoride is injected into our drinking water, its level is approximately 1 part per million, that's ppm, but since we only drink half of 1% of the total water supply, the hazardous chemical literally goes down the drain, and voila! The chemical industry has not only a free hazardous waste disposal system, us, but we have also paid them handsomely in the process. You know, you just couldn't make this up, could you? It stinks. This is very wrong. Independent scientific evidence over the past 50 years has shown that sodium fluoride shortens our lifespan, promotes various cancers and mental disturbances, and most importantly, makes humans stupid, docile and subservient. And that's all in one neat little package. There is increasing evidence that aluminium in the brain is a causative factor in Alzheimer's disease, and evidence points towards sodium fluoride's strong affinity to bond with this dangerous aluminium. Remember, it is a byproduct of aluminium manufacturing and also has the ability to trick the blood-brain barrier by imitating the hydrogen ion, thus allowing this chemical access to brain tissue. There is a tremendous amount of emotion, highly unscientific scientific know-it-all emotions attached to the topic of sodium fluoride usage. But I personally have yet to find one objective, double-blind study that even remotely links sodium fluoride to healthy teeth at any age. Instead, I hear and read such blather as 9 out of 10 dentists recommend fluoride toothpaste, etc., etc. Concerning the practice of putting sodium fluoride into drinking water, where did this insanity begin, and who tried it first? Well, it appears the very first occurrence of purposely putting sodium fluoride into drinking water was in the German ghettos and in Nazi Germany's infamous prison camps. The Gestapo, you see, had little concern about sodium fluoride's supposed effect on children's teeth. Instead, the reason for mass medicating their water supply in the camps with sodium fluoride was to sterilize humans and force the people in their concentration camps into calm bovine submission. Finally, as a kind of shocking, I think, but you know, it gets better, stroke worse. This is a letter that was received by the Lee Foundation on Nutritional Research in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, way back on the 2nd of October in 1954, from a research chemist by the name of Charles Perkins. He writes, "I have your letter of September 29 asking for further documentation regarding a statement made in my book, The Truth About Water Fluoridation, to the effect that the idea of water fluoridation was brought to England from Russia by the Russian communist Kremenov. In the 1930s, Hitler and the German Nazis improvised a world to be dominated and controlled by a Nazi philosophy of pan-Germanism. The German chemists worked had a very ingenious and far-reaching plan of mass control which was submitted to and adopted by the German General Staff. The plan was to control the population in any given area through mass medication of drinking water supplies. By this method they could control the population in whole areas, reduce population by water medication, of course, that would reduce or produce sterility in women, and so on. In this scheme of mass control, sodium fluoride occupied a prominent place. Repeated doses of infinitesimal amounts of fluoride will in time reduce an individual's power to resist domination by slowly poisoning and narcotizing a certain area of the brain, thus making the person submissive to the will of those who wish to govern them. That's a convenient and cost-effective light lobotomy, isn't it? The real reason behind water fluoridation is not to benefit children's health. If this were the real reason, there are many ways in which that could be done that are much easier, cheaper, and far more effective. The real purpose behind water fluoridation is to reduce the resistance of the masses to domination and control and loss of liberty. When the Nazis under Hitler decided to go to Poland, both the German General Staff and the Russian General Staff exchanged scientific and military ideas, plans and personnel, and the scheme of mass control through water medication was seized upon by the Russian communists because it fitted ideally into their plans to communize the world. I was told of this entire scheme by a German chemist who was an official of the great IG Farben chemical industries and was also prominent in the Nazi movement at the time. I say this with all the earthiness and sincerity of a scientist who has spent 20 years research into chemistry, biochemistry, physiology and pathology of fluorine. Remember, that's the gas. Any person who drinks artificially fluorinated water for a period of 1 year or more will never again be the same person, mentally or physically. Signed, Charles E. Perkins, chemist, 2nd October 1954. Apparently the public outcry by Dr. Brunner and others precluding the fluoridation of public water systems for a season. But soon thereafter, the Food and Drug Administration allowed this deadly poison to be put into toothpaste, and our dentists were systematically brainwashed into providing fluoride treatments to their patients. Of course, today, many major metropolitan areas have a minimum, and remember that's a minimum of 1 part per million sodium fluoride systematically added to their water supply, and many areas are seeking to add this poison every year. Add this to the fact that bottling companies, that's soft drinks and juices, use fluoridated water to make their products. Is it any wonder that people can no longer think clearly and ask pertinent questions of their elected and ecclesiastical leaders? Is it also a mystery why so many top mind-controlled Nazi scientists were brought to America by the CIA and their infamous Operation Paperclip? In fact, did you know that 36,000 people were brought to America during Paperclip? Now, if you believe, how can I put this? Let's just have a little think about this. If you believe all of this is just a coincidence, if you believe that it's not true, it can't be true, they wouldn't do it, go ahead. Keep brushing your teeth with fluoride toothpaste. Keep sucking on your sodium fluoride enhanced Coke or Pepsi product. For ignorance truly is bliss, and you truly deserve what you get. Mothers, if your little ones are having trouble concentrating at home or in school, or have been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, perhaps you would be well advised to look for the culprit. And the solution to the problem? No further than your home medicine cabinet, your tube of toothpaste, and your friendly neighbourhood school's water taps. Look guys, buy a water filter. Get the bubble bottle, £14. As the tap water tastes better, refreshing, and that's what I did, you know. And here, just a quick question, just a quick observation. You know why I think there's a lot of truth in the dumbing down of the population? Have you noticed here in the UK how people simply have forgotten how to complain? You get a bad meal in a restaurant, you don't say anything. Alright, yeah, there's the odd one that does, and the odd road rage or whatever. But most of us just simply join the queue, join the line, stand in our turn. We don't book the system, we don't rock the boat. We just do what the next guy does. Now I remember when it was said that lions were led by donkeys in the First World War. But if you go back years, you will see that pre-fluoridation, people had the ability to express themselves openly. And now perhaps that is something that we will never have again.
You are listening to the premier UK Preppers and Survivalist radio show. And here is your host, Tom Linden.
You are listening to the UK Preppers Radio Network on KPRN-DB UK. I'm your host, Tom Linden. So, it's nearly spring. That means it's nearly summer. And I'm wondering if everybody has been and checked all their survival blades. Have you put an edge on them? Have you cleaned them? Just an idea. But for me, a blunt knife is a piece of metal. Anyway, I have another press release. Northern Wilderness Bushcraft and Steve J. Taylor would like to invite you to join the First Frontier Bush Gathering Wild Camping Weekend in Durham on July the 1st, the 2nd and the 3rd of this year. They have one large area, by the way, 1,800 acres of wild woodland, meadows, along with ancient abbey ruins of Finch Hale Priory, and also have an on-site eco-touring park on the other side of the land with a small farmhouse cafe. The Frontier Bushcraft Gathering Weekend is a traditional weekend of bushcraft, woodlaw, survival and outdoor living skills, and it is obviously a celebration of man, music and nature on a site of outstanding beauty. Perry McGee, who's from the National Tracking School, I know Perry lives not too far from me. Perry is going to be there on site giving talks and demonstrations along with signing copies of his book. We've got primitive living instructor Andrew J. Parker giving demos on flint knapping, along with many stalls selling the best of bushcraft gear. I shall also be there giving a talk on bugging out and survival. There is also going to be live music around the Centrefield campfire, and that's acoustic artists Tango Bravo Charlie, TBC, to be confirmed. The stalls for this event have been given free to traders so they can keep their prices as low as possible, so you guys, the visitors, get the best prices on knives, axes, clothing and other equipment. They've also everything from falconry displays to bushcraft courses in the wild woods, along with axe workshops, fire lighting, campcraft, camp cooking courses, plus so much more. The weekend itself, the passes are £44.99 and as little as £119.99 for a family of 5. Daytime passes cover 2 days for one price, starting at $19.99 for the weekend. You can reserve your tickets now and pay on the, if you wish. Get your tickets from Northern Wilderness Bushcraft at gmail.com. That's Northern Wilderness Bushcraft at gmail.com, and they'll need your name, contact information, and how many tickets you need. Or simply visit their website at northwestwilderness.co.uk. And God willing, I will see you there, guys. The ticking nuclear time bomb. There are people who react to TV breaking news and newspaper headlines, and some of these people stop reacting when the news coverage stops. Just because it's not on TV or in the papers, it does not mean that the problem has gone away. Russians flee Chernobyl-style plant over fears of radioactive leak. Russians took iodine and caused traffic jams as they rushed to leave the proximity of a Chernobyl-style power station on the Gulf of Finland amid fears that officials were covering up a radioactive leak. The panic followed the emergence of pictures showing a cloud of vapour pouring from Leningrad nuclear power plant some 50 miles from St. Petersburg. The authorities insisted that there was no radioactive leakage after a defect which caused a steam emission from the turbine section of the station, the most westerly in Russia, but people did not believe the no danger claim. Radio Svoboda reported that in the wake of the incident on Friday, locals in Sosnovbor started withdrawing money from their banks with their cards. A run on money, eh? They said locals were in panic mode. Desperate statements from officials that the radiation levels were normal were not believed. The people had more trust in the ecologist who prepared their own statement. They confirmed the radiation level in Sosnovbor was normal, but said that wind carried the steam away from the tower towards the Gulf of Finland. They said that didn't mean the stream was not radioactive. One local said everyone got very worried and then rushed to get iodine. Now, this is seen as a protection against radioactive poisoning. There are traffic jams, or there were traffic jams, as residents left the area and headed for St. Petersburg. Oleg Bodrov, who's the chairman of Green World Ecology Group, said people were right not to trust denials from the authorities, with many people recalling that Soviet officials turned a blind eye to the Chernobyl nuclear catastrophe in 1986. He said they know well that the officials' first task is to say that everything is normal, but not to report about danger, even if there is one. All those who understand a bit about nuclear energy know that it was an attempt to whitewash the reality. In this reactor, the water turns into vapour, which goes into the turbine, and the vapour is surely radioactive. This time we were lucky, the reactor was immediately stopped, but some vapour still appeared, and because the turbine was stopped, it had to go somewhere, and it was expelled via the tubes. Fortunately, the wind had an unusual direction for this region. It was south-southeast, and the vapour has gone to the Finnish Gulf. Oh, well done. It's gone to Viborg town. This was also in the direction of Finland. Bodrov claimed for medical checks for staff at the power plant. Interfax reported that a special commission was working at the nuclear station aiming to find out the reasons for the omission. emission. One woman, an employee of the station, was taken to hospital with high blood pressure. The incident led to a shutdown of the second power unit at the station, and after the reactor shut down, the steam leak significantly dropped, reported a nuclear.ru website. An area of 40 square miles was completely isolated. Does that just not mean evacuated? Plant manager Vladimir Pereguga said the situation at the plant is calm. There is no reason for evacuation of the plant personnel and the residents of Sosnovoy Bor. He said the reactor had been halted in a subcritical state. The reactor was being cooled in order to correct a defect. Readings at the plant in the days after the incident show safe levels of radiation. The plant was completed in 1973 and had an expected 30-year life cycle. It suffered shutdowns or safety alerts in 2007, 8, 9 and 11. So, we have, I think, got problems across the world with these nuclear reactors, and we need to be on our toes.
You are listening to the premier UK Preppers and Survivalist radio show. And here is your host, Tom Linden.
You are listening to the UK Preppers Radio Network on KPRNDB UK. I'm your host, Tom Linden. Now that we're going to start going out into the woods, please be aware of ticks, T-I-C-K-S. They can cause Lyme disease. Remember, Ray Mears had Lyme disease for 11 years. Just something to be aware of. I don't want to frighten you, but just check yourselves over if you've been playing in and around the ferns, for example. Now, thanks to Managing Director Paul, listeners visiting Field Leisure, the Bushcraft and Wilderness store at www.fieldleisure.co.uk will get 10% discount by entering the code UKPRN at the checkout. Now, Paul guarantees next day delivery all over the UK. He's proved that to me. He also guarantees fast European and even US delivery. And to me, in this day and age, that's reassuring and refreshing. So please check out the great list of quantity of survival related products at www.fieldleisure.co.uk. Now, one of the best events of the year, this hopefully will be my 4th year, although it's been going for 13 years, that's the Wilderness Gathering, of course. And this year it's between the 18th and the 21st of August, down in Wiltshire. The Wilderness Gathering has over the years become a firm date in the diaries of those who enjoy bushcraft, nature and wilderness survival skills. The previous years have seen this event grow from a small event in one field, with some traders, schools and so, sharing bushcraft and skills and a knowledge to a festival, I think, of wilderness living skills encompassing bushcraft survival and woodland crafts. This show has grown into an event with something for all the family. Stories and music by the campfire. Out in the evening, that's brilliant. Skills workshops, activities throughout the whole 3 days of the festival. The Wilderness Gathering has without doubt become the premier family event for all those interested in bushcrafts and the great outdoors. The show has bushcraft clubs for all ages of children, and so they can get involved. There's more activities including den building and wilderness skills classes. There are hands-on demonstrations of game preparation, knife sharpening, basher boat building, bow making, greenwood working, archery, axe throwing, primitive fire lighting, to name just a few. There are talks on survival psychology, classes on falconry, wilderness survival, fishing. All those skills are there for everybody and anyone to participate in. In fact, I'm going to be there myself, and I'll be talking about moving from Bugout into a survival situation. I would say you could probably pick up information and nearly all the skills needed to live in the wilderness and prosper at the wilderness gathering. There's a wealth of quality trade stands, of course, and they've been carefully selected to be in theme for the show, selling everything from custom knives to teepees, outdoor clothing to primitive tools. Talking of primitives, look out for Will Lord. I don't mean you're a primitive, Will, but by goodness he knows his stuff when it comes to the Stone Age era. You see, Will doesn't just act it, he lives it. The organisers have seen that a free service bring and buy stall has been set up, that you can bring your unwanted kit and they'll actually sell it for you, and there is no commission to pay. There are local scouts and explorer groups on site. They're promoting the world wide scouting movement, of course, as well as helping out with some of the classes and site logistics. The catering, wow, I would just go there just for the catering. The catering is well within theme of the event, with venison and game featuring on the menus, plus organic cakes, drinks, great Somerset cider. The woodland and open field camping facilities, that's right. You can camp in the woods if you want and light your own fires, hammocks, bashes, bivvies, whatever you like. There's even hot showers on site. It really is the place to be. So to get the full details and of course to book your ticket, get across to www.wildernessgathering.co.uk or give the guys a call on 0845 838 7062. And God willing, I'll see you there. Now then, a food source that I do enjoy at this time of year is the American signal crayfish. As the temperature slowly begins to warm up and spring sets in for good, the rising temperatures wake up more than just the plants and trees in spring. There is also movement at the bottom of our rivers, lakes and ponds. American signal crayfish often carry the crayfish plague, to which they are immune, but which kills non-American crayfish within weeks. And that's ours, the white ones, you know. That's the ones that are going to die. And I don't think that's good. Anyway, the crayfish plague has been a problem that's been growing across Europe for many a year. I have to say that since the 19th century, it wasn't really understood as a problem. Crayfish-loving Sweden, having begun to suffer losses of their native noble crayfish in the late 1960s, imported American signal crayfish, which were known to be immune to the plague. It was not understood, though, that American signal crayfish nonetheless were potential carriers. As the Swedish project seemed to be going well, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, Food and Fisheries as it was then, way back in 1976, introduced American signal crayfish to the UK. It was expected that farming them to supply the lucrative Scandinavian market would create a good export business. This crayfish was part of the food revolution that begun in the 70s and was being imported to be farmed here in the UK. As fantastic a result as the pallets of British people walking up after post-war rationing was, all of these imported new foods were brought in quickly and some accidentally released into the wild. An unfortunate casualty of the mass immigration has been our own white-clawed crayfish, whose stocks have reduced by a massive 95%, making it particularly extinct except for a few places in the UK. So what can we do about it? Well, the answer really is not a lot. Although the Environment Agency have tried to hold back this storm, along with other damaging foreign species, such as the mitten crab, Chinese crab, and again, very tasty, of course, another immigrant we like to eat, there's simply nothing we can do. Apart from being voracious predators eating plants, snails, small fish, fish eggs, invertebrate, and even its own young, they carry this deadly plague that they themselves are immune to. And this crayfish plague only affects other crayfish and is disseminating populations of natural white claws across the UK. The signal crayfish has also used its own cunning to spread, but has also been helped along the way by our reckless crayfish farms. With an ability to cross land and huge numbers on their side, signal crayfish have successfully invaded most parts of the country. The signal also digs burrows up into the riverbanks up to 3 feet long, believe it or not. With each year it lays more than 250 eggs at a time, encased in a tough shell and armoured with 2 large pincers, a bit like a lobster, really, a mini lobster. It looks and indeed tastes rather like a freshwater lobster, and this is why I love to eat them. They taste amazing, they're easy to cook and prepare, and all you have to do is simply catch them. Their season is April to May to November, although they are most prevalent in May onwards and for most of the warm weather. I have read of many ways to catch these gourmet treats, including crab lines, using baits from chicken carcasses to smoked bacon. The technique that seems most effective is to use crayfish traps, baited pots if you wish, that can be left for a couple of hours or even overnight. Like most predators, crayfish are most active in the dark. You do need a license to fish for crayfish here in the north of England, but not in the south, so please check with your location with the Environmental Agency, and they are really easy to obtain, these licenses. They are free, providing you stick to their rules. Please make sure that you recognise the difference between the signal and the white clawed, or indeed any other species of crayfish, so that you can execute your own revenge on these predatory imports. Incidentally, by taking a signal crayfish out of the water, whatever age or size it is, if you put it back, you are breaking the law. Now here's some facts for you. The female breeds from the age of about 2 when it is 40 millimeters long. Breeds once a year, average 250-275 eggs. The eggs are fertilized by the male in October-November. They're carried by the female, folded within her tail until May, when the young are released, if they can escape her jaws. The signal is bigger and more aggressive than native crayfish. They are less fussy in what they eat, and of course more successful and rapidly colonise new areas. The signal carries a fungus which is fatal to the native crayfish. They can live up to 12 years unless we halt this permanently. The crayfish's most endearing characteristic, in my opinion, is its flavour, and once deshelled and the gut which runs down the centre of the tail is removed, well, I think you're in for a very tasty and satisfying meal. Crayfish have a rich, tender, luxurious pink meat that is outrageously Moorish. That's how I put it anyway. And the Swedes go mad for the crayfish season and throw big dinner parties to gorge on this little crustacean with the accompaniment of vodka. Now in the UK, the crayfish is partnered with rocket. However, there are other combinations, including Valentine Varner's amazing dish that includes cob nuts, cheese and a hot oven. The meat is mainly in the tail, however the claws also provide excellent food too. When you have picked the shell clean, you can use that too. Simply roast the shells in a really hot oven for 10 minutes with a little olive oil, some sliced fennel, an onion, and then place in a saucepan, cover with water and boil the shells to make a most amazing stock. Now please check the rules and regulations of crayfish, as well as details on how to get a licence at the Environmental Agency at www.gov.uk/guidance/permission to trap crayfish. Now Peter at Bug Grub is offering a 10% discount on all his products. I think the question is, have you got the gonads? Can you walk the walk? In fact, dare you eat bugs? Well, I dare you to eat some bug grub. I've done it. I know other people have done it as well. Very tasty. In fact, to me, they just taste like pork scratching. So, to get your discount and to get the bugs that are totally edible, pop along to www.buggrub.com. That's www.buggrub.com.
You are listening to the premier UK Preppers and Survivalist radio show. And here is your host, Tom Linden.
You are listening to the UK Preppers Radio Network on KPRN-DB UK. I'm your host, Tom Linden. You know, I think this is a really exciting time of year. If you've never done it, perhaps you'd like to go out and get some dandelion heads, you know, the yellow head. Drop it in some batter mix. I like to use sparkling water with a batter mix, a bit like a tempura. Certainly it's lighter than a fish batter. And drop them in some hot fat and you've got dandelion fritters. Don't forget the leaves from the dandelion before it flowers are basically a good substitute for rocket in a salad. You know, it's just about time, I think, that we started eating what's around us. So don't forget the nettles. You can either pull the top, well, it's the top 2 or 3, maybe 4 stems, pull them off. If you hold them over a fire for 5 or 6 seconds, something like that, it'll kill all the stings off. You just eat them as they are. Or you might want to use them as spinach. If you do, you're going to need a lot, because they obviously break down just like spinach. A good question is, by the way, what is a bivy bag? Now, you wouldn't think it, but I rarely hear of preppers and survivalists using a bivy bag. Why is that, I wonder? Could it be that people do not want a bivy bag? Surely not. A bivy bag is like a waterproof jacket for your sleeping bag. It's a thin waterproof bag. You use it over the top of your sleeping bag. A bivy bag is cheaper than a tent. It's a lot smaller than a tent. It's very discreet, allows you to sleep in tiny patches of flat ground. You're not cocooned from the environment as you are in a tent. In a tent, you're basically in a rubbish version of a building. In a bivy bag, you really are outside. You feel the breeze on your face, look up at the stars before you sleep, and sit up to a brilliant view in the morning. I personally think it feels more exciting and more wild than in a tent. In fact, it is obviously closer to nature in many ways. Are there any disadvantages to a bivy bag? Well, I suppose if it rains, you'll have a less pleasant night than if you were in a tent or a 5-star hotel. But you see, my solution's a simple one. Bring a tarp. Job done. Even the best bivy bags leave some condensation on your sleeping bag. For a single night trip, this really isn't a problem, but for extended use, you really do need to be able to hang your sleeping bag up to dry occasionally. Air it. How do you use a bivy bag? Somebody once said. Well, it's simple. You just slip it over your sleeping bag. If I'm organised, I do this before leaving home rather than doing it late in the dark and pouring rain. Pull it over your head when you sleep. Just leave a small gap for your mouth to breathe out and in order to minimise condensation. I tend to leave my sleeping mat on the outside. If the weather is foul or if you have a large bivy bag, you can experiment with putting it inside the bivy. Remember to take a large waterproof bag, in other words a bin bag, to put your other stuff in at night, and I tend to use my boots and rucksack as a pillow. A bivy bag is colder than a tent, so make sure you take warm clothes. And which bivy bag should you buy? Well, here's my advice, which I hope you will find helpful to help you choose the one for you. On the budget side, if you're confident the weather's going to be warm and dry, then you don't need one at all. I mean, I've slept like this on many nights. If you're in the UK, there is usually a risk of rain, and the cheapest way to stay dry is with one of the orange survival bags. They are handy to have around. If you're heading into the hills, you should have one with you anyway, even if it's just to use as a means of attracting attention from any rescuers. The chief disadvantage of these is that you will realise in the morning how much vapour your body gives off at night. They're not breathable, in other words, and your sleeping bag will be quite damp. But for a single night micro adventure, as you call it, they are absolutely fine, and they cost, well, under £5. If we're looking at mid-range, a step up from the orange bin bag in many ways, is the breathable Bivy bag for £17. The British Army's Bivy bags are good too. There are Gore-Tex and discreet green and enormous ones, a good and bad point. They cost about £40. And then the luxury Bivy. If you think you will use your Bivy bag regularly, for multiple nights, if you're going to bivvy in more than one difficult condition, then there are a couple of really good breathable bivvy bags. There's the Alp Kit Hunker, that's £30, weighs about 376 grams. You've got the Hunker HL at £45, the Rab Survival Zone, and there are of course many others on the market too. If it's not nice, then a tarp means you'll still have fun. I really do recommend a tarp if the weather is a bit dodgy. Nigel at Hunter's Knives has offered you, dear listener, a 10% discount on all his products simply by using the code PREP10. They're also the major importer in the UK of crossbows, so check out www.hunters-knives.co.uk. Well, that's it for this week, my friends. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Don't forget, check out the Disaster Survival Network at disastersurvivalnetwork.com. I'm your host, Tom Linden, and this is KPRNDB UK. I'm wishing you all a very safe and stress-free week. Bye-bye for now.